Welcome to another edition of Trunk and Tales as we navigate what is happening in the world of politics. I'm Stacey Smith, and I ask that you hit the like or the subscribe button on whatever platform you happen to be using. There is a long list of issues or stories that have captured headlines, but will any of these sway voters for the midterm elections? We'll talk about that, and a discussion about what Democrats need to do and what they should not do. It's coming up in this edition of Trunk and Tales. And with me to talk about this is my panel of political analysts and experts, and joining me on the Democratic side is the Pennsylvania State Democratic Party Chairman, Eugene DePasquale. Mr. DePasquale also served as the Auditor General for the state of Pennsylvania, holding that office for 8 years. And prior to that, he was elected to the state legislature. He now teaches at Pitt and at York College. And Keith Schmidt joins us on the Republican side. Keith was the state director for former Republican Senator Rick Santorum. Keith also consulted on Santorum's 2012 presidential bid. Keith has his own consulting firm. Gentlemen, I hope you're keeping warm in this bitterly cold weather we've been going through here in the Pittsburgh area.
It is better to be inside than outside.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start. You know, there has been a lot happening on the news front, which obviously can affect the political front. And that political front is the midterm election and the presidential contest in less now than 3 years. So let's start on this side of the political ledger, the issues or the stories associated with the Trump administration. Here is a list of sorts that I've come up with. ICE and the issues that happen in Minneapolis, Greenland, relations with Europe, Maduro and Venezuela, Iran, Ukraine and the president's comments about Ukraine, Gaza, the economy, the prices, and healthcare costs. There are still 9 months before the midterm, so I guess my question, I'll start with you, Keith, since it's on the Republican side, is that will any of these issues impact the election, or are these just headlines that will just fade with time?
No, these are all pretty serious. That's a pretty serious list, and they don't all have to resolve themselves, but the people that elect congressmen and senators have to have a feeling like whatever their agenda is on each of these individual mini crises is their agenda as well. Are they moving in a direction that they're comfortable with? We don't. It's not about ending all these issues by November. A lot of them are going to drag on beyond November. But is our approach something that they can embrace? You know, and I say, you know, it echoes every time we have a conversation about the midterms, and I'm not going to go on that tangent again, but I'm going to say largely with all these crises, they're all very important, but it is the economy. I mean, in the end, they'll have patience with the crises around the world and what we might be doing in foreign policy. But oftentimes in my lifetime, midterms are pretty won and lost on domestic policy and the economy. So how now we all know, I mean, because we do this sort of for a living, that a lot of these things that are going on around the world affect domestic policy and prices. So they must have a formula. The Republicans want to hold control. The White House is very intent on wanting to be able to continue with an agenda for 2 more years after the midterms. So they must have a plan. It's 9 months away. But we're going to have to see some real movement. The one place I've seen movement in the economy is gas. I mean, everywhere else it's mild improvements, nothing striking. But I have seen the price of gasoline go down considerably, at least in my region. So, but food prices, energy prices, all these things will come to play. But again, I think it's going to come down to the economy, and we'll know where that's heading by, I'd say, late summer.
Gene, I want you to talk about this, but I don't want you to say how you might be able to capitalize on some of these, because that's going to be our next segment here in just a second. But your thoughts on this?
Well, I think if there's 2 parts. Number one is, and Keith and I both know this, Stacey, you know this as well, this is always a tough election for the incumbent party anyway. No matter which party is in the White House, the midterm is always a tough election. Even when the president is popular, they tend to lose seats. So you just start off with that's just sort of where it goes. I think the bigger overall challenge, forgetting even all these issues, which we can debate each individual issue and the importance and some of the horrific stuff that's happened, is that I think the biggest challenge, and along Keith's point with the economy, is that a lot of these issues, whether you agree or disagree with the president, aren't focused on the average everyday lives of people of Pennsylvania and the United States. So when you talk about what's happening in Greenland, and other type issues, I think it's getting the administration off track on the economy, which is how these elections tend to be decided. So I think that's the bigger political challenge for the administration, is that even if people agree with that, when you see the polling, I think it's almost 2/3 of the American public think that regardless of party, that the president isn't doing enough on the economy.
You bring up the polling. I just happen to have this from the Real Clear Politics average. On January 30th, 2025, President Trump's approval rating was 50.2. It was compared to a minus 44.6, a 5.6 on the positive side. January 30th, 2026, it's minus 12.1. His approval rating is at 42.8 compared to a minus 54.9. And just for some perspective, that puts him in the low 40s. 1 year after his inauguration, Joe Biden was almost at the exact same spot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with just what's been happening on the television screen over the last couple of weeks. I mean, he was in about the mid-40s, and I just think a big chunk of America looks at what's happened, and he's the incumbent, I think, and they just look at it, and they just don't like what's happening. I think that's the biggest telltale sign of it. I do think Keith is right. I think you've seen some reduction in the gas prices. I think just in my own neighborhood gas station, on the eyeball test, down about 10 cents. But the other prices are relatively about the same. So, but if the people don't think that he's focused enough on the economy, I think that and the economy are really where he's got to, if I were him and if I were advising him, which obviously I'm not, if I were him, I would sort of do everything I can to start doing what he did in Iowa, which is start getting back onto an economic message.
And with the 24-hour news cycle, I mean, we jokingly say what's news at 8 in the morning is old news at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So 9 months is a long time in this world of politics. And there are still things he's doing. The things he's doing in this hemisphere, I think he thinks is going to have an eventual effect on energy and whatnot. And there might be still a plan in place here that these world things can, the woes that are going to befall places like Russia and Cuba and others because of some of the provocative moves we're making will make it much more difficult for these countries who are very anti-U.S. and causing us a lot of problems, both economically and militarily, will be lessened based on some of our actions we've taken. But we got a gift on last November. The odd year there isn't a lot of races. The Republicans got their clock clean, but they also were handed the agenda for 2026. They were told that the affordability is the agenda. And he now knows if I don't get passing grades on affordability a year after that election, then we're done. So I have to think that all this mayhem that we have right now, because it's literally we have too many fronts right now. We have 6 or 7 fronts. I think you'll see a lot of that calm down by the beginning of summer, and I think you'll see a focused and he'll literally justify, like only he could. He'll justify the reason we did all these provocative things with tariffs and confronted all these foreign issues is because we put America first, and it's now coming home to roost in a positive way in our economy. That's going to be the argument. Whether he has enough time to pull it off, I don't know. It's a gamble, but we'll have to wait and see.
To Keith's points, he does Houdini acts, and I still don't know how he does it, which is he has this big announcement that I'm not invading Greenland anymore because we cut a deal on how we're going to go about managing Greenland, which was exactly what we're doing right now. Like it wasn't any agreement, but he comes out and makes it seem like it's me having a press conference say, I've agreed not to invade PNC Park because I got everything I wanted and the Pirates are going to let me buy a ticket. I mean, it's unbelievable, but he does do it.
Well, you wonder sometimes, my friends wonder, people like Rubio and the defense secretary and the vice president, how are they standing at shoulder to shoulder with him on some of this stuff? There's a part of me that really believes he takes them in the back room at the White House or in the Oval Office and said, let me be me. I'm not going to invade Greenland. I'm not going to do all this. This is how I get deals done. And quite frankly, I had cocktails last Friday with a guy I really respected as a great strategic mind, and he was like bombastic at this happy hour saying, "What it should be required reading the art of the deal. This is he tells you what he's going to do.
He,
He's going to ask for this, which is never achievable because he wants this." He said that's what he causes chaos, and then gets what he wants based on the chaos. He said that's just he tells you in writing. He sold books on it.
no,
He said this is who he is. And there's a part of me that thinks he must tell the most trusted advisors within his cabinet to say, I'm going to do some great. I'm not going to do them, but you got to let me be me. This is how I
either,
make people stuff.
either that or they read the book.
Or they read the book, I'm going to read the book. I'll be honest with you. I'm not,
Yeah.
I am going to read the book because he literally, my buddy Chris says it's transparent, Keith.
no,
He tells you how he does deal making.
Keith is spot on with this, and that is it's the same playbook every time. It's not my style.
Every time,
I don't
right.
think it's Keith's style. Stacy, I don't think it's your style. That's not how I behave. But he tells you in the book he asks for ridiculous items, never really expecting to get it. But in his mind, again, I'm not in the world stage, it's different. But in his mind, that makes it possible for him to get something that he wants. That's how he behaves. And again, I want to be clear. I don't like the style. I think it is screwy at times, and I think it causes chaos, which causes other people to get hurt. But he literally tells you, and even when Bill Maher had dinner with him, he said, "Oh, I found him very charming." And even Kamala Harris, when they had a conversation after the election, she goes, she talked about it in her book. She goes, he was very charming. Like he sort of like called her by the proper name, like meaning she realized after that it was all a show. Like it was, and so partly I think when he's talking to Rubio privately, he probably says, "Let me be the entertaining guy I am." But no, of course we're not going to invade Greenland. But he never says that publicly because I think he feels he gets something from the chaos.
I want to move on here in just a second, but I do want to say this one thing. I have another podcast that I do called The Bull, the Bear, and You, which I have some financial advisors on. And they pointed out this past Monday about something about the economy, which could be a problem for Mr. Trump and the Republicans in the midterms. And that is what they're calling a K economy. And that is that you have one sector of the population that is doing very well, and everything that's going on with the economy, that's fine. They've got the money for it. But then on the bottom swing of that K, you've got people who are not doing very well at all. And I guess it really is going to depend on who gets the vote out on these particular sides of the K.
Stacey, I think that has been the telling economic issue since the Great Recession when the financial collapse happened in '08. I think that we have been in an economic, what I call, and I'm a Star Wars nerd, but the trash compactor economy, which is middle-class families feeling the squeeze. And that's through the end of Bush, Obama administration, Trump, Biden, Trump. So, I know my job isn't always to be fair, but if you look at this, I think this economic squeeze of people, like as we seek out more efficiencies, and I think the people at the top, and I'm not one to throw stones against rich people, but like they are doing very well. And now this AI pressure is coming on. I think people are just anxious and concerned. And it's this, this trash compactor economy, which is people feeling the squeeze. Prices are going up and their wages aren't going up to meet it. And I think that would be an issue with no matter who the president is right now.
Yeah, in the last 10 years, the amount of young people between 25 and 45 that own their own home is the lowest in our entire history of our nation. I mean, which used to be the hallmark of our economy.
Right.
There are other democracies around the world, but home ownership was kind of the hallmark of America. You owned your own home. You were part of a neighborhood. You helped each other. You became vested, and that number will tell the tale. What Eugene just pointed out, that group is being squeezed. They feel like the only way they can afford it is by taking something in inheritance or taking something from the generation before or after them. But the middle class isn't what it was. They don't have they lack the ability to save.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's move on to the other side of the ledger if we can, on the Democratic side. So, Eugene, how do the Democrats try to capitalize on some of these issues that we've just been talking about? And I'm going to give you a quote from a column in the Wall Street Journal by Karl Rove. He's a former, as you know, former advisor to President George W. Bush on the Republican side. And I know Democrats just absolutely love to hear what Republicans think the Democrats should do, but this is what he said. After a long column, though, the last paragraph is, Democrats must do what they've never done during the Trump era, emphasize a governing agenda rather than fierce denunciation of the president. Talk less about him and more about the needs of ordinary Americans. Stay away from the far left. Show common sense. It shouldn't be hard to do, but it is. And that's why the Democrats are still in a jam. Your thoughts?
If I ever run for anything again, here comes the male piece against me. I agree with that. So let me start off with Mr. Trump, the president. I think I said this when he first was reelected. There's two things that we would need to come back into power. One is for him to screw up. Now, I say that sort of like, obviously, I don't agree with his agenda, but I think he has created the opening politically in the climate where Democrats can take advantage of it. But the second part is that we had to go back to where middle America could trust us again. Whether, and I'm not sure we are there yet. And I think when it comes to these bread and butter issues, what would we do on the economy? What would we do on prices? People forget, Newt Gingrich, the contract with America. I think, when Obama, and Bill Clinton, even when he won in 92, there was an agenda there. Not everyone agreed with it, but there was an agenda. Contract with America, there was an agenda. I think when Obama won, there was an agenda. Trump, say what you want, there was an agenda. I don't think you can just assume the other side's going to collapse and you're going to gain power. We may win seats in the midterm, but there is no way we actually win the White House back in 2028 without an agenda that talks about the bread and butter issues that most people are thinking. And even when it comes to ICE, just denouncing ICE, look, I have real issues with what they did. But if you're going to actually reform it, what is the actual guardrails you're going to put on them? And if you want to abolish them, again, okay, then how are you going to protect the border? I don't think it is enough to say Trump has, his goon squad in Minneapolis. I don't like it either, but that's not enough. You got to also say what you're going to do.
Keith, before you jump in, I just want to say this on another article I read just this morning, Eugene, and it's from the Democratic side, and that is defund the police was an absolute disaster for the Democrats, right. And that if you take that mantra with ICE, it's not going to work. Independents still make a huge difference in who is elected president and who is elected to Congress. Independents voted for the idea of immigration reform. They may not like what's going on in Minneapolis. They don't like the idea of the killings. They don't like the idea of police officers with masks over their faces and the things they're doing. But they don't want the agenda over getting rid of illegal aliens necessarily to stop. They just don't like the way it's being carried out.
Sometimes I wonder why we can't have common sense in this country. And I mean that on the left and right. This is, maybe I'm wrong. Keith, tell me, if I'm wrong on this. Most people want the border secure. Biden didn't do that. They trusted Trump to do it. And I think most people want the border secure, and they want targeted police efforts, whether that be from a federal level or a state level or a local level, to get dangerous criminals out of the country that are here illegally. Police make arrests every single day without what's happening in Minneapolis. That happens every day. So you can do both. You can make sure that you're getting the bad guys out, not having 3,000 masked agents walking down the street. Go get your warrant. Go get the people you need to get them out of here, secure the border. I think that's where, Keith, tell me if I'm wrong, I think that's 70 to 80% of the country right there.
Oh, I know you're absolutely right. I agree again. Once again, I agree with my distinguished colleague quite a bit here. The question is, as you said, can the Democrats take the advice of a long-term Republican who gave a paragraph of brilliant advice to it right there? But clearly they're not taking it right now, even to the point where I actually believe the sitting president of the United States uses as a tactic their hate. Like he draws them off their game. He makes it personal and they make it personal. the fact that we're still saying with as many fronts as we're fighting now, and all the craziness in domestically and around the world, there Republicans like myself still believe there's time to right the ship. That's hard to believe, and the reason is the Democrats still haven't got it together. They haven't taken advantage of really the year of chaotic agenda. I mean, a disruptive agenda, and he'll be the first to tell you I'm implementing a disruptive agenda. Well, that for coalitions and various groups, that's a great way to fundraise and to take advantage of it. But somehow, a year later, they haven't really maximized that at all, to the point where you wonder, I heard the numbers on the president, but you know what the numbers are in the Democratic in Congress. I mean, they're not much better, and in most cases worse. In
The fact is, on that point, I was just going to bring up that favorability ratings for the GOP, according to Real Clear Politics average, GOP stands at a minus 13.3. The Democrats stand at a minus 20.4. So it goes right with what you're saying.
It's important to keep in mind on this and on that number, because I'm not saying this to push back on the number. A big chunk of that disapproval of the Democratic Party are actual registered Democrats. I mean, I want to be clear about that. And that's because rank and file Democratic voters don't trust the national leadership. I think they really like Josh Shapiro. I think they have support for, depending on what part of the state, I think they may like their local Democratic politician. But at the national level, and I say particularly a Chuck Schumer, I think a lot of Democratic voters have lost a lot of faith there.
And they need to identify some sort of, the issues are important, but they need a leader. Right. They need a vessel to carry it out. The fact is, if Trump figures it out, there's enough still swing Democrats and Republicans that loved him and understood what he did when they liked him. And if it starts coming back, they'll empower him again. They have a vessel that thinks, hey, he's crazy, but he did it again. Right. He pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and things are moving in the direction he said they'd move. I'm with him, and I'm investing as much in his ability to implement that as I am in the issue at large. The question now is, there is no leadership in the Democratic Party right now. I don't know if they get the agenda together. I'm not sure who's going to be the voice of that agenda in a credible way to win the midterms. So they got to figure that out. There's still enough time for them too, because the news cycle, like I said, turns over every 30 minutes. But it's somewhat of a crisis that they have been unable to capitalize on a lot of these issues.
And by the way, on that point, there should be, and whether it's 3 or 5 things, maybe 6, whatever it is, it's not that hard to come up with. If you give us the midterm victory, these are the first 5 bills we're passing. And then you just say
specifics. You're right. Specifics work.
I'm just making this up right now. We're going to increase the minimum wage. We're going to pass paid family leave. We're going to put real guardrails on ICE. And if the president wants to veto it, that's on him. We're going to do hold hearings with these corporate conglomerates on why our prices are going up. Say 5 things that you are going to do, and put them out there and just say, we're going to pass these bills. If the president wants to veto it, that's on him. But we're going to pass these 5 bills. We're going to put them on his desk. And we think at the end of the day, he'll pass them. And put the pressure on him on those 5 things. Make them your 5 most popular economic issues. And just say, this, if you give us power, this is what we're doing.
We did that in the first term, in the first midterm for Bill Clinton, and created one of the most successful presidencies in history for a 6 years having a Republican Congress and a Democratic president, because he fought us a little bit, but he got credit for it all. Got credit for it all from 93 to 2000.
Keith, it probably made you mad. He ended up taking ownership of the
100%.
Yeah.
Welfare to work. I mean, all the stuff that we fought him tooth and nail. He's at the top of the food chain, and that could happen again here. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you just brought up the name Josh Shapiro. Perhaps no other possible presidential candidate for 2028 has received as much attention in the recent couple of weeks as the governor of Pennsylvania. So a couple of points. First, he does have to win re-election in 2026. And then also his book has now ruffled some feathers, according to Axios, that they had a story that not every Democrat in Pennsylvania thinks that highly of him. I'm going to give you a quote from someone else, though, who says, "No one works harder for Pennsylvania Democrats than Governor Shapiro. From local races to winning back Congress, he's all in, and we're fully united behind him." There's a little smirk on Eugene DePasquale's face, because that's a quote from you. So where do you stand for the I know you're going to be in support of Shapiro. There's no question about that. But he's on this national book tour. Does he have to pay more attention to Pennsylvania than what he's doing right now, or is this just a tour out there about his book, or is he running?
The governor is dialed in on re-election. He's, literally we spoke a little bit ago. He's getting ready for his budget address, so he is dialed in on that. Now, when it comes to some of that stuff, Keith and I have been around the block a little bit on this stuff. There is always somebody out there that's jealous or upset because they didn't get a grant or who knows about all that stuff. But if you look at average regular voters, the governor's approval rating is over 60%. And among average everyday Democrats, he's in the mid-90s. And so to me, I get that, you try to write a story on that. And I'm not saying that the people that they interviewed people and that they were lying. I'm just telling you that is not average everyday voters.
Yeah, when I started in politics in 1980, compared to how you run for governor, United States senator in 2026, it's night and day. But no one understands the new system, in my opinion, any better than the current governor. He understands how to communicate with people. He's an effective communicator, and he's been able to set the agenda and articulate an agenda and really culpable. And we get frustrated as Republicans because he basically controls the media on this to a degree. He knows how to stay focused. You can't get him off his agenda. He knows when he goes to a meeting, the reporters will not defer him from why he's there, and he will control the talking points. If you want to talk to him about another issue, then set a time to talk to him. I'm here for X. And I've worked for plenty of politicians that didn't have that discipline, and elected officials, that they were always drawn into the side fights or something that had nothing to do with why we released that press release. This is as disciplined and incumbent as I've ever seen in my political life in Pennsylvania.
I've known him for 20 years, been friends with him for 20 years. He believes in, well, look, if I'm here to talk about economic development, I'm not going to get sidetracked on what Donald Trump's doing in Greenland. That's just who he is. Like he believes if he's got a message he wants to deliver, that's the message that's going to get delivered. And if you look at the vast majority of his agenda, it is really, and you talk, and I want to be clear because I know we've talked about this, the national Democrats have not been focused on the bread and butter issues. But if you talk about Governor Shapiro's reelection strategy, it's right there. Increased education investments, lower crime, and tax cuts for working families. It's not a secret. That's the reelection strategy.
All right, let me ask you this, Keith. Does Stacey Garrity, the Republican nominee for governor in the state of Pennsylvania this coming election, does she stand a chance against Shapiro?
The good news for Republican is she's not a token. She's not a placeholder. She has a resume that could easily put her in a position to be the chief executive of the fifth largest state in the nation, and that goes to that bodes well for us. We have a qualified person who has the right type of resume, military experience, business experience. So we put ourselves in a position to take advantage of an opportunity if somehow it comes down the path. Right now, I understand the hand we're dealt right now. But anything could happen in the next 9 months. If something would happen nationally or in Pennsylvania that would cause some angst to the sitting governor, she is a choice. She's not just the other person running. She can legitimately be looked upon as a qualified person to be governor. So I like the fact that it's not a nuisance candidate or a far right candidate. This is a real qualified person, and she puts us in a position, as I said, if the opportunity presents itself, she could fill that void and do it in a very effective way.
Okay, let's move on, and we'll wrap this up. I like to end this every once in a while with your thoughts on who the presidential candidate is going to be for each party 2028. Keith, I'll start with you. On the Republican side, who do you think will be the nominee?
The Vice President of the United States.
Okay. On the Democratic side, who do you think will
I think
be
it
taking
is way
on?
too early for us. I do think I'd be shocked if it's not Vance on the Republican side. I think it is way too early for us. I think we've got to stay focused on these midterms first.
Oh, you dodged it. Oh, come on. Do you think Shapiro's going to run or not? I mean, I know you're state Democratic Party chairman. You have to be careful of what you say. But
there is there is no doubt about it that we have got to be focused on the midterms. We will then cross that bridge after that.
Spoken like a true state party chairman. Keith, how do you view it on the
My
Republican?
mom didn't raise a dummy. Come on.
I'm a broken record on the Democratic side as well. The governor of Kentucky, dark horse right now. I think he's going to come into focus in the ensuing months, and he has the type of resume that has changed Washington in the past multiple times in my lifetime. That dark horse was Clinton, was Obama, was Carter, and I think it could be Bashir.
I think
All
Bashir,
right.
by the way, Keith, I say this, it's an interesting pick. I think he has the highest approval rating of any governor of a Democratic side, particularly in a red state. I think he's a plus 30 in the approval rating, which is
I didn't know that. I knew it was good. I didn't think it was that good.
But
Wow.
Keith, that's almost impossible. I think
That is almost impossible.
The only one that's comparable with that, I think, is Phil Scott, the Republican governor of Vermont, who's plus 30 as well. I mean, you're talking about people that have bridged the gap. Those two have done it about as well as anyone in the country.
Yeah, and you put a Bashir and a Shapiro together on a swing state and on a red state. That could be problematic for the Republicans in 28.
That would be
We'll
a
have
tough
to wait and
matchup.
see.
But,
That would be a tough
let's see, maybe you get LeBron and MJ to be on the same team, right?
All right. Guys, thanks so much. We'll continue our look at politics on our next episode. Again, if you're watching or listening to this podcast, I urge you to hit the like or the subscribe button. And right now, that does it for this edition of Trunk and Tales. We hope that you join us again for our next one. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Stacy.